Can I please ask that you mute your microphone? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we were talking about the unlawful termination, which we call a breach of promise. So the unlawful termination is a point where one of the parties is entitled to withdraw from the engagement and institute an action of damages or satisfaction. So that is what we call a breach of promise, which is an unlawful termination. So there are many scenarios that we can use. There's also cases that I'm going to share with you. They're also there on your study guide. So you can look at those cases. I'll share these cases when we finish. Another very interesting case, it's the Nhlapo case. I will share that case with you. I'm not going to discuss it here because of time. There's another case, it's the Bridges case. Those are the very, very interesting cases that I would say, please go ahead and read those cases. I'll share them in the group with you, and then you guys can go ahead and read those cases. I'm not sure what happened. My my Zoom the meeting thing just went blank on me. I don't know what to do, but we'll continue. I hope I'm still audible. So a breach of promise happens in many instances. One of the instances would be, let's say, for example, we're still with Jane and John. Jane and John are happily engaged, and then one day John wakes up in the morning and he's like, hey, I don't want to get engaged anymore. And then Jen will be like, where is this coming from? Like, no, I don't want to get engaged anymore. I'll be like, why are you terminating this engagement? We have had no problems and blah, blah, blah. And then John is like, hey, I have been seeing somebody and I'm so in love with this person and I don't want to be with you anymore. Okay, so there is a couple of things that Jane can do. Obviously, one of them, Jane is not going to force John to continue being engaged with him. Obviously, John has stated his intentions that he wants to be with somebody else. So now Jane is our innocent party. So now we are on Jane's side. What can she do? Who wants to tell me what can Jane do at the time where John is like, hey, I'm breaking up with you? Who wants to give it a try? You can type on the chat. You can raise your hand. There's many ways to kill a cat. Okay, the first thing that Jane can do, she can come out of the engagement. So she can withdraw from the engagement, and she can also claim from John, because an engagement, like we said, an engagement is a valid contract. So she can claim for damages. Those damages will include things like, hey, you broke my heart, and I am emotionally, what do they call it these days? I'm emotionally broken, I'm emotionally traumatized, and something like that. She can actually take John to court and claim for damages, breach of promise, for heartbreak, and so forth and so forth. Let's say let's say they already had a date. They had already set a date. So taking us a little bit back, Jane and John had set a date for the 15th of December 2022. And they had paid for the venue where they're gonna get married. And then Jane had already bought her wedding dress, and maybe she had already paid other service providers for the wedding. And now John doesn't want to get married anymore. What do you think Jane will claim for from John? Or what do you think she's entitled to claim for? Anyone wants to try? You can type on the chat box, or you can just raise your hand. Okay, so what she can claim for is called the patrimonial loss, which is the action for damages. And then now we're going to speak about the actual expenses. The actual expenses that Jane had already spent. Let's just forget about John now, because John is the guilty party, and Jane, we are representing Jane, and Jane is going to court to claim for damages because of John. So let's put John aside. So now Jane will go and claim for the actual expenses. So these actual expenses will involve the costs that Jane had spent on. Let's say we said that Jane had already bought a dress, her wedding dress, and let's say she had already paid 50% of the deposit for the venue, and then she had paid other service providers. She is entitled to claim all those expenses from John, because John is the guilty party. So she can claim for all those expenses that she incurred, and then she can even claim for a broken heart. She can even claim for what do they call it? She can even claim for head broken heart, head feelings, whatever name that you want to call it. For embarrassment, for humiliation. The court can compensate Jane for that. So what would usually happen is that, so let's say, for example, on the day of the wedding, where everyone was there, and Jane was getting ready to get married, and then they found out that John is missing. Now John decided not to get married on the day of the wedding. That is even more humiliation. That means that Jane can claim more if it does happen that she got humiliated on the wedding day, in front of the family, in front of their friends and everybody else. So the compensation becomes a little bit higher, and the court obviously will be, yes, emotional damage. The court will be in favor or on the side of Jane, because Jane is now going through all this, and we know that when the court makes those kind of decisions, they use a certain discretion and say, look, this person was ready to get married. She obviously told her friends. They will look at the value of marriage to women. A lot of women love getting married. They fantasize. I don't know if fantasizing is the right word, but they visualize their wedding day from a very young age. And imagine how Jane would have been excited to get married, only to get dumped on the wedding day. So those are one of the things that we can talk about. So in the past, this is very important, that if you get such a question that will ask you about like the claim for damages, you will have to include this in your answer. In the past, there used to be something called prospective losses. I'm going to explain what this is because it's very important that you know it. And also it's very important that you read the cases that are related to it. So the prospective losses, the courts in South Africa used to reward the innocent parties for prospective losses. Let's say, for example, Jane, let's say John was a prince. John was a Zulu prince. He comes from this royal family where they have a lot of money. When he gets married to Jane, Jane is gonna be a princess. I don't know if that's how it is. Is that how it is, guys? Please help me here. If a prince get married, does the wife become a princess? Anybody wanna help me on that?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So now Jane is like, I'm gonna be a princess. I wouldn't have to work an inch my entire life because now I'm gonna be a princess in this royal family. And then before the wedding, John decides that, you know what, I don't wanna get married. But don't confuse this. This was in the past. The courts have changed this, but it's important for you to know this because you're gonna have to include it on your answers when they ask such questions, or if they ask you about a particular case. So now Jane had already envisioned her entire life in the royal household. What used to happen was that Jane will take John to court and be like, hey, look, John had promised to marry me. We have been together for such a time. And then because John is a prince, I was going to be a princess. And the type of money that I would have had as a princess, I was not gonna work. I was just gonna sit around and have everyone serve me. The court will look at how much loss, how much prospective losses has Jane incurred. So let's say they look at her life with John and be like, "Who? She could have been a millionaire in 5 years." The court would award her for that because at that time she wouldn't have to work. Let's use a different example. Let's say Jane was working as a teacher. So one of the cases is Van Jaarsveld versus Bridges. So let's use this case as an example. So Bridges was a musician. So Bridges is our Jane here, and then Van Jaarsveld is our John. So Jane now, Bridges was a musician, and then when Van Jaarsveld said they're going to get married, Bridges canceled her tour. She was supposed to have a tour, a musical concert where she would travel the world. She canceled all that because now she was going to get married to this super rich man. And then the court said, we do understand that you cancel. That is when the court changed their mind, because now women used to lie a lot and say, I left my job because I thought that I was going to get married to this rich man and then he dumped me. Or I decided to stop working because there was no need for me to work if I'm going to get married to such a filthy rich man. So that's when the court was like, okay, it looks like now there are morality issues that we need to take care of, because some people would intentionally, I don't know how to put it for it not to sound wrong. Some people would intentionally force, or not force is a wrong word, intentionally make somebody get engaged or get married to them because of their riches. So that's why the court was like, hey, let's look at this in a different way. So now Jane has stopped working, and then she's going to get married to John, and then John will have to pay for that if he decides to change his mind at a later stage, and vice versa. Guys, this does not, it did not only favor women, it works either ways, because sometimes people, like the type of relationships that we see nowadays is that sometimes you find that somebody wants to be a house husband, and then the woman is the one that is going to be working. So if it would have happened at that time, because it's changed, at that time, I think the court will also favor men if the tables were turned. So it's not always about women. So yeah, the cases that I'm going to ask you to read, it's the Fanyelsfeld. If we have somebody who speaks Afrikaans, they can correct me. So I'm just going to type it here. Fanyelsfeld versus Bridges. Please, guys, read this case. It is very, very important. The last, it was dismissed by the Supreme Court of Appeal. So you must check the one that was heard at the Supreme Court of Appeal. I will see if I have it. I might as well send it for you guys. And then the second case is the Zimo case. So I want you guys to read these cases, and then if like when we meet again, then you can tell me about these cases, because they are very, very interesting. There is more cases, and I saw these cases as well on your study guide. So the other one is a Guggenheim versus Rosenbaum, and then there's Devil versus Swanepoel, and then the Bridges case, the one that I just cited now for you guys. I would like you guys to read those cases, and then next time when we meet, we will talk about these few cases that I mentioned. So I see we still have a little bit of time. Let's talk up. Is there anybody with a question before we talk about? We're going to talk about engagements, and then I think we will close it off when we're done with the engagement gifts. We're just gonna briefly speak about the engagement gifts. So the topic of the engagement gifts is related to this Unlawful versus Zimo case, the second case that I put for you on the chat box. So who can give me any example of an engagement gift? Any example that, do we have anybody engaged here? Let's start from there before we start talking about gifts. If you're engaged, do you want to put your hand up? We're not trying to put you on the spotlight. We just want to see if there's anyone engaged. Anyone engaged, you can just put your hand up. Let's see. Then we can talk about gifts. Maybe you will learn one thing or two. Anyone engaged? No one? Anyone married? Oh yes, to me, we'll go back. We'll go back. Just remind me just before. Let's finish with the engagement gifts. Then we'll go back to just cause. Anybody married or engaged? No. Okay, no problem. So let's talk about the engagement gifts. We all know that when people are engaged or when people are in love, right? There is usually, oh, Nelly, are you engaged or married? You can just unmute. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm just asking.
No, I'm married.
You're married. Oh, okay. So you went through the stages of engagement and marriage. Thank you, Nelly. Okay, okay. So I do believe that what we're going to be talking about, you're probably going to understand better, and then you can also assist us by saying, hey, you look like you're getting out of control here. Easy. Okay, so okay, let's continue with the engagement gifts. So the engagement gifts, one of the most important engagement gifts is a ring, right? So I do know that people these days, they get engaged, they use like a fake ring or a string or something like that. We have seen all those on TikTok. But anyway, one of the most important engagement gifts is a ring. So when John goes like, hey, are you going to be my wife? John will obviously or probably give Jane a ring. So a ring is given to the other party as a sign of engagement with a promise to marry. It's very, very important, guys. Then we have other forms of gifts like chocolates, like cards, like vacation trips, you know, those kind of gifts. And then we have, yes, gift cards. And then we have bigger gifts. Like, let's say, for example, now, because when people get engaged, they're planning to have their home together. So there is sometimes, this is probably in reference to rich, like super rich people, that would be like, hey, I'm buying a house, I'm buying Jane a house as a sign of marriage, right? So that when we get married, me and Jane, we're going to live in our house happily ever after. So houses is one of those. And then, or John can be like, hey, I'm going to buy Jane a car. And then when we get married, Jane will use that car to go to work and run the errands and maybe take our future kids to school. Fine. And then there's something like bed, like bedroom suite, things to put in the house, and be like, I'm buying you this so that you can put in our house when we get married. Okay, so here is where troubles begin. We see all these engagement gifts, everything is beautiful. But what happens when they break up? What happens if the engagement is terminated? Let's just look at both ways, lawful or unlawful. If the engagement is terminated, there is some engagement gifts that need to go back. So let's talk about the lawful termination of an engagement. If the engagement is lawful, no, let's just, before we go to lawful and unlawful, when the engagement is terminated, there is certain gifts that need to go back. Something like a ring. A ring is a promise to marry. And the rings, guys, usually cost a lot. So a ring needs to go back to the person that bought it, because that ring was a sign of marriage. Then a marriage is no longer happening. So the ring needs to be returned. There is a Latin term, which is a very important Latin term, which you can check from the textbook. I think you guys use the Heaton and Kruger textbook. So you can check, there is a Latin term, I think it's called arhae sponsalitia. That is a term for gifts presented to show the seriousness of the promise to marry. A ring needs to be returned, guys. If somebody breaks up with you and had already given you the ring, you are legally obligated to take it back. Otherwise, they will sue you, because that ring needs to go back. It shows the seriousness of the other party to marry you. So if the marriage or the wedding is not going to happen, please send it back to stay out of trouble. But it can be normally terminated if it is if the engagement is terminated by mutual agreement. So if it does happen that it's not terminated by mutual agreement, then the innocent party can keep. But why would you want to keep a ring for somebody who broke your heart? Like, come on. Anyway, so let's talk about the second set of gifts. Second set of gifts is the one that I explained, like the bedroom suites, like the furniture, like the house, like the cars and things like that. If Jane had bought those, if John had bought those things for Jane, or if Jane had bought those things for John, like a house, a car, and be like, hey, when we get married, this is what we're going to use. If it does happen that the engagement is broken, these things need to go back. They need to go back to the owner because the marriage is not happening. The only reason why these things were bought, it's because of the marriage. It is only if these things that were bought, these big things that were bought, where, let's say, for example, maybe it was a birthday present or something like that. But if it was bought because you guys are going to get married, now you're going to live together, and then now you're planning a future together, then they need to go back. And then lastly, there is small gifts that cannot be returned. And these are the gifts that it's like the gift cards, like Henrisha said, the gift cards, they go back. They don't go back, sorry. The gift cards, they don't go back. The flowers, they don't go back because they're obviously dry and dead somewhere in a bin. The chocolates, they obviously cannot go back because you would have already ate those. So all those small gifts, you can't send them back, and you are not obligated to send them back. So does anyone have a question with regards to the gifts? Anyone? What if the gift was coming from a friend because you were going to get married? If the gift is coming from, I don't know who wrote this question. Is it, oh, it's Sherry. Okay, so now that, is it Andy? So, oh, I don't know why I don't see your name. I only see the other name on top. Okay, Andy. So if the gift is coming from a friend, this gift, is it for both parties or it's for one party? Is it for both Jane and John? What if we both contributed in buying the engagement ring? Then it can be sold. If you both contributed to buying the ring, then the ring will be sold, and then each party will get their own share. And then going back to Andy, so if that gift was coming from a friend, if that gift was coming from a friend because you're going to get married, and it was for let's start with both parties. If it was for both parties, then if the friend doesn't want to take it back, then the gift can be sold, or it can be divided into two, whatever it is, and then each party can take its own. But if it was directed for one party, then the other party can decide what they want to do with the gift. Does that answer your question, Anderson? Does that answer your question? Oh, okay. Can a boyfriend claim his gifts back when we break up? Let's say we're just in a good relationship but not engaged. No. If you were, remember, if you are boyfriend and girlfriend, then there is no what do they call it? There is no legally binding agreement there. I think the only legally binding agreement that you're gonna need as a boyfriend and girlfriend is when you, maybe if you guys have a certain contract, when he's buying you those gifts, he can say, okay, the deal here is that I'm buying you these gifts provided that we stay together, and then if we do break up, then you can give them back. Then if there is that kind of agreement, then maybe you can give it back because you are in an agreement. But because it's not an engagement, remember, an engagement it's a legally binding contract. So the agreements between boyfriend and girlfriend doesn't really carry a lot of weight. Unless if you maybe sign something, you know. If it's a car bought by one party but registered in the name of the other party whom the car is presented, what happens? Precious, that's a very good question. I do believe if the car was bought by, let's say it was bought by John, for example, and then she bought it for Jane, if the intention was clear that this car is being bought with regards to the marriage, that it's going to be used during the marriage, then that car needs to go back. But now we're going to be faced with the problem that, okay, fine, he bought it and then he gave it to Jane and then he registered it to Jane's name. So now we're going to be looking at it now goes further as it goes further to law of contract, which we're probably going to cover in a couple of years. But yes, the car will need to go back, provided that it was made clear or the intentions were clear that this car will be used for the purposes of our marriage when we do get married. Does anyone has a question? Okay, thank you guys. There is, I can see that we're running out of time again. So there is somebody who asked, I don't know what the question was. I think it's to me. I wrote it down. I can't seem to find it. To me, if you can please write the question for me again. Please, I've been scrolling, I can't find it, and I can't find where I wrote it down. What was the question? Oh, yes. It was, the question was with regards to just causa. Who wants to answer to me? Does anybody wants to answer to me with regards to just causa? So do you have is there anything else that you didn't understand that you want us to cover with regards to just causa? So so to me, just causa is it's when an engagement is terminated lawfully. So just causa is a Latin term that means just cause. So it means, so let's say, for example, John, since we've been using John and Jane, let's say, for example, John and Jane have been engaged, and then they have certain reasons. They come to an agreement, and then there is reasonable reasons for a ground of terminating their engagement. That is what we call just causa. In English is just cause. So you can just say just causa means a reasonable and lawful ground for an action. So the burden is usually on the innocent party to say this engagement is being broken on certain grounds. Is that clear for you, to me? Does it answer your question? Okay, all right. Does anybody has a question? Ladies and gentlemen, we've got 3 minutes left. Does anybody else has a question before we close? It doesn't have to be a question, it can be a comment. Let's hear what you guys think about engagement. Anyone put your hand up? Or you can just unmute and go for it. Or you can type in the chat box. Okay, and thank you very much for the effort you are doing for us. Highly appreciated. Thank you so much, and Sherry. I really hope that these sessions will contribute will contribute to your marks. I know this is it's not easy, and I do hope that they will be very helpful. And if you guys have any questions, you have my number, or you can post on the group. I will respond, or if anybody else has the answers to your questions, they will always respond. But you are more than welcome to text me, email me, and ask any of the questions. I am not sure. I will have to check the timetable, and then it will be posted on the group as well. And then yeah, that is the answer to Black asking about when the next meeting is. I'm not sure. I'll check the timetable, then you guys will be updated from the group. I now have a clear understanding of what an engagement is. Thank you so much for this session. You are very, very much welcome, Fifi. Thank you so much, guys, for taking your time and joining me this evening. It is time for me to call it an evening. Thank you so much, guys, and enjoy the rest of the evening. So this session was being recorded. The recording will be made available to you guys through the group. From me, thank you and have the best evening. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.